Chris Cornell, 2 and 2. Let us pray. Dear Lord, how deep does the rabbit hole go? Forgive us our sins. We acknowledge your Son, Jesus Christ. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. Okay, a brilliant commenter pointed this out to me today. I had heard this name Jill Messick before, but I wasn't sure what it had to do with things. Now I see. Anyway, I'm going to read you an article. That's what it looks like. Let's begin. Hashtag Me Too and 2 suicides, Anthony Bourdain and Jill Messick. Since the launch of Me Too, 2 innocent people connected to the movement have committed suicide, Anthony Bourdain and Jill Messick. In February of 2018, 50-year-old Jill Messick, a one-time talent representative for Me Too heroine Rose McGowan, took her own life. And that was February 7th, by the way, that happened. In June of 2018, 61-year-old Anthony Bourdain, celebrity chef, world traveler, and boyfriend of Me Too heroine Asia Argento, hanged himself in a Paris hotel. Both untimely suicides occurred less than a year after the birth of Me Too in October of 2017, a movement born through countless accusations against countless men in 2 left-wing institutions, Hollywood and the establishment media. Harvey Weinstein, of course, was the first, the smashed bottle that launched the USS Me Too, and his 2 most famous and outspoken accusers are McGowan and Argento. Both have accused the disgraced mogul of rape. Both have accused the entertainment industry at large as complicit. McGowan, who is best known for co-starring in the decade-old series Charmed, has achieved worldwide fame as the fearless face of Me Too. She has written a memoir, Brave, and her every social media utterance can make headlines and damage reputations. She also leads what she calls hashtag Rose Army, 1 million or so Twitter followers eager to defend their queen. Argento, who was best known in her native Rome as an actress and director, also became a household name through her Me Too activism, which culminated in May when she earned rapturous applause at Cannes for a speech blistering the Foo Film Festival as a hunting ground for rapists. In the wake of this upheaval, 2 people associated with McGowan and Argento took their own lives. We now know Messick and Bourdain spent years battling with the black pool of depression. This means we cannot know what drove them to end their own lives. Sometimes there is a trigger, sometimes not. What we do know is the timeline of events just prior to both suicides, and those facts are worth laying out. In October of 2017, McGowan spoke of Messick in glowing terms to the New York Times, while it was Messick who unwittingly set up the January 1997 meeting with Weinstein that would end in a rape accusation. McGowan told the Times that after she told Messick of the incident, she held me. She put her arms around me. The New York Times also reported that even though she had only recently been promoted to a talent manager, the not yet 30 Messick immediately reported the Weinstein incident to her firm's partners and insisted they act. The 2 partners, Nick Weschler and Keith Addis, then met with Mr. Weinstein at Miss Messick's request and confronted him with Miss McGowan's claim, the Times reports. And so, according to both the Times and McGowan, all the way back in 1997, Messick was on her side, her champion did all she could, and although the matter was out of her hands, after she reported the alleged assault to her superiors, McGowan ended up with a six-figure settlement from Weinstein. Let me say that again, six-figure settlement. Nearly a year after her role in reporting Weinstein, Messick went to work for Weinstein until 2003. Over time, though, McGowan's opinion of Messick seemed to change. The Federalist reports that through social media, and Brave released 3 months after the Times interview, McGowan publicly lashed out at Messick for arranging the meeting with Weinstein for failing to support her, and for pressuring her to settle with him, for taking a job 10 months after the incident at Weinstein's company, as Messick did, for being part of the problem. In other words, Rose was claiming all of a sudden that Messick arranged the meeting where Rose was raped, and that Messick didn't support her and pressured her to take a settlement. That's what she's saying here. Out of nowhere, she says this stuff. On the same day Brave was released, January 30, Weinstein's lawyers released an email the accused serial rapist requested from Messick just before the scandal exploded on him in October. Looking back some 20 years, Messick spelled out her version of events. When McGowan and I met up the following day, she hesitantly told me of her own accord that during the meeting that night before she had gotten into a hot tub with Mr. Weinstein, she was very clear about the fact that getting into that hot tub was something that she did consensually, and that in hindsight, it was also something that she regretted having done. I think we all know what happens when you get in a hot tub with someone of the opposite sex, right? Now, I'm not saying that gives one the right to take privileges, unless it's consensual, but we as adults know what getting in a hot tub means. McGowan flipped out over the report, and while she trained her anger on Weinstein, according to the Federalist, McGowan's Rose Army hunted down Messick. Members of Rose Army intent on finding Messick coordinated in search of the right internet doors to bang on. Although Messick had tried to disguise her social media presence in an attempt to preserve some privacy, but she maintained a LinkedIn account as 500 million working people do. They found her there. They hounded her. They spewed ugly taunts and demanded on Twitter that she give back her woman card. A week later, Messick, who was herself a Me Too supporter, took her own life. In a public statement, Messick's family blamed the suicide on Weinstein, the media internet mobs, and McGowan's inaccurate accusations and insinuations. Seeing her name in headlines again and again as part of one person's attempt to gain more attention for her personal cause, along with Harvey's desperate attempt to vindicate himself, was devastating for her. It broke Jill, who was just starting to get her life back on track. What makes Rose's inaccurate accusations and insinuations against Jill ironic was that she was the first person who stood up on Rose's behalf and alerted her bosses to the horrific experience which Rose suffered. 20 years ago, as a very junior person in a management company hierarchy, Jill exhibited her integrity in doing the right thing. She raised the red flag with the heads of her firm. In the face of inappropriate behavior, Jill handled the situation appropriately. Jill Messick was the mother of 2. Anthony Bourdain was the father of an 11-year-old girl, separated from his second wife, and not only dating Asia Argento, he was her public champion and defender, backed by a popular social media presence and a reputation for telling it like it is. Heaven help anyone who saw Argento as anything other than a Weinstein victim and spotless Me Too warrior. By all accounts, including those social media accounts and his own travel show, Bourdain was very much in love with Argento. In September of 2017, Bourdain gushed to People magazine. She's a really accomplished director and writer, along with being a longtime actress and a real sponge for culture, music, literature. So she's enormously helpful and inspiring. That doesn't sound like gushing to me. Again, the statements by Bourdain about Asia don't impress me at all, and they don't sound like a man that's really, really in love. But you've seen the previous videos. After her moment at Cannes, Bourdain described Argento's speech as an absolutely fearless off-script nuclear bomb. Bourdain did say that marriage to Argento was not an option. After 2 failed marriages, he feared it would be the death of everything with Argento. But he also said he wouldn't hate moving in with her. There's the famous quote. In other words, I'm not going to marry the bitch, but I wouldn't hate moving in with her. In other words, this guy doesn't really sound like he was super in love with Argento. But again, you've seen the videos that I've done. What's more, on top of championing her Me Too activism, Bourdain also championed her career. In a scathing indictment of Argento, Penthouse columnist Lee McSweeney writes that Bourdain's influence led to Argento's new role as a judge on the Italian version of X Factor, and he hired her to direct an episode of Parts Unknown when the series filmed in Hong Kong. This Argento-directed episode aired on June 3rd, and in the closing scene, McSweeney says Bourdain looked into the camera and stated what many of his fans had already figured out when it came to his feelings for Argento. To fall in love with Asia is one thing. To fall in love in Asia is another. Both have happened to me. And remember, when I presented this, I don't remember if I presented on live stream or YouTube, but he spent more time talking about Asia, the country or the area, than the woman Asia. He went on a rant about the city that he went to in Asia. In other words, the rant wasn't about the girl, it was about the city. So again, Bourdain proved that the love really wasn't that strong on his side. 2 days after that segment aired and just 3 days before Bourdain took his own life, a 42-year-old Argento was photographed kissing a 28-year-old French journalist. Remember those pictures? Wrapped it all up in a nice pretty bow, put Argento in another location with another guy. And of course, Anthony was just so distraught, he had to kill himself, right? Nice, pretty bow. From here, McSweeney reports, everything between the two quickly and publicly spiraled. Argento fought to have the photographs pulled. Bourdain was mysteriously no longer following his girlfriend on Instagram. Argento then posted an Instagram story of herself in a Sid Vicious shirt that said "fuck everyone" and captioned the image, "You know who you are." 3 hours later, he killed himself, and she deleted the image off her Instagram story. Remember that video as well? Quick aside, according to McSweeney, Argento's lawyers demanded she remove the article and apologize to Argento. Nothing in the posted letter, though, disputes any of McSweeney's facts. It was at this point that Argento and McGowan teamed up. Writing on behalf of Argento, McGowan, in an open letter to Rolling Stone, defended Argento against those blaming her infidelity for Bourdain's suicide. And this is where the public learned for the first time Argento and Bourdain apparently had an open relationship. In other words, we heard from McGowan that Argento and Bourdain had an open relationship. Remember that? Anthony and Asia had a free relationship, McGowan wrote. They loved without borders of traditional relationships, and they established the parameters of their relationship early on. Asia is a free bird, and so is Anthony, McGowan explained, adding Anthony's suicide was very much his own choice, his decision, not hers. His depression won. I wonder, did his depression win? Or was he about to talk about something? Maybe about a certain 17-year-old boy that he paid off for his disgusting girlfriend, who he obviously didn't love that much. Something else we have just learned, something confirmed by both the New York Times and Argento, is that Bourdain knew Argento had settled an underage sexual assault claim against her for $380,000 in November of 2017, just 1 month after Argento helped launch the Me Too movement. Jimmy Bennett is a former child actor who has known Argento since he was 7, when they co-starred as mother and son in a 2004 movie directed by Argento. According to Bennett, back in 2014, when he was 17 and Argento was 37, she got him alone in a California hotel room where the age of consent is 18, gave him alcohol, and then forced herself on him. Bennett claims the assault was emotionally devastating because he had always seen Argento as a mother figure. As far as Bourdain's involvement, according to the Times, everything was handled through his lawyer. According to a statement released this week by Argento, though, Bourdain was her white knight in the matter, the man who both urged her to settle and who paid the $380,000 out of his own pocket. Many interpret Argento's statement as her way of blaming Bourdain for being too eager to settle, for getting her into this mess. Argento also denied having sex with Bennett, but photographs and text messages released by TMZ and not yet denied by Argento say different. Regardless, from here, it is not hard to imagine the world of hurt Bourdain would currently be in were he still alive. Not only would he be accused of hypocrisy for attempting to cover up an alleged sexual assault of a minor at the height of the Me Too movement, he also championed the alleged predator Argento as a Me Too role model. The following is not a small deal. Bourdain's popular show aired on the far-left CNN, a capable channel obsessed with bringing President Donald Trump down over payoffs to silence 2 adult women for alleged consensual affairs that happened over a decade ago. And here is one of CNN's biggest stars reportedly involved in a payoff to cover up the alleged assault of a minor. This was a ticking time bomb in the life of a man with a hard-earned reputation as an honorable straight shooter. And then the woman he took this career-killing risk for was photographed screwing around in public with a guy half Bourdain's age. And even if there was an open relationship, these things are done discreetly to save the woman from humiliation and the man from emasculation. Argento did not try to stop those photos from being published for no reason. Me Too and 2 tragic suicides. Interesting, huh? Seems 2 deaths, 2 suicides, are related to this Me Too movement in some way. Interesting. Interesting. I also want to read this. I went back and looked at who Messick was and when she died and how she died. I could not find how she committed suicide yet. I haven't looked that far. But I did find this. This article here. Producer Jill Messick committed suicide, family says in a statement blasting Harvey Weinstein and Rose McGowan. Hollywood studio executive and producer Jill Messick died on Wednesday by what her family said was suicide. She was 50. That was February 7th. This article came out February 8th. The family said in a lengthy statement first published in The Hollywood Reporter that Messick had battled depression, which had been her nemesis for years, but the family also lashed out at Harvey Weinstein and Rose McGowan, saying that Messick had become collateral damage in the movement that has arisen after multiple allegations of sexual misconduct by Weinstein were reported. Messick executive produced films including Baby Mama, Mean Girls, Hot Rod, She's All That, Tina Fey, the writer of Mean Girls told Deadline that Messick was instrumental in helping Mean Girls get to the screen. She was a fiercely dedicated producer and a kind person. Messick was McGowan's manager in 1997 when the actress says she was raped by Weinstein. In January, Weinstein's lawyer published emails from Messick and Ben Affleck and said they proved McGowan's accusations were a performance. McGowan responded on Twitter that her managers, publicists, and assistants were all complicit in what had happened to her. The statement also said Messick chose to remain silent in the face of Rose's slanderous statements against her for fear of undermining the many individuals who came forward in truth, but now that Jill can no longer speak for herself, it's time to set the record straight. Here's the full statement, okay, by Messick's family. The movement just lost one of its own. Jill Messick was a mother of 2 children, a loving wife and partner, a dear friend to many, and a smart entertainment executive. She was also a survivor, privately battling depression, which had been her nemesis for years. Today she did not survive. Jill took her own life. Jill was victimized by our new culture of unlimited information sharing and a willingness to accept statement as fact. The speed of disseminating information has carried mistruths about Jill as a person, which she was unable and unwilling to challenge. She became collateral damage in an already horrific story. Jill believed in the movement. She supported every woman finally coming forward to share their dark truths and expose those who had committed previously unspeakable deeds. She was loyal, she was strong. Jill was many things, but she was not a liar. Over the past few months, many women have come out with allegations against Harvey Weinstein, including Rose McGowan, who has repeatedly spoken with the press, striking out against not only her alleged attacker, but a great many others. One of them was Jill, who chose to remain silent in the face of Rose's slanderous statements against her for fear of undermining the many individuals who came forward in truth. She opted not to add to the feeding frenzy, allowing her name and her reputation to be sullied despite having done nothing wrong. She never chose to be a public figure. That choice was taken away from her. Now that Jill can no longer speak for herself, it's time to set the record straight. In January 1997, Jill was an entry-level manager at Addis Weschler. One of her first clients was Rose McGowan, and one of Jill's first duties was to set up a breakfast meeting with Harvey Weinstein during the Sundance Film Festival. Following the meeting, Rose told Jill what had happened, that she made the decision to remove her clothes and get in the hot tub with him. Remove her clothes, huh? A mistake which Rose immediately regretted. That doesn't sound like a mistake to me. That sounds like a choice. Rose never once used the word rape in that conversation. Despite this, Jill recognized that Harvey had done something untoward to Rose, if not illegal. She immediately went to her bosses, the partners of Addis Weschler, to recount Rose's story and to insist that they immediately address the situation. They told Jill that they would handle the situation. The ensuing arrangements between Rose and Harvey were then negotiated, completely without Jill's knowledge. At that time, all Jill knew was that the matter was settled and that Rose continued making films with the Weinsteins. Continued making films, huh? She never knew any details until recently, when Rose elected to make them public. 10 months later, in November of '97, Jill received a call from the Miramax exec VP of production, recruiting her for a job as an executive at Miramax Films, working in production in Los Angeles. Jill was hired based on merit and her excellent work of over 2 years as a young development executive working with Woods Entertainment prior to her time at Addis Weschler. Rose's most recent round of press to promote her book has included news stories involving Jill. Interesting. The constant press attention Rose garnered in print and on national TV led to Harvey Weinstein releasing 2 documents. One of these was an email that Jill wrote to him months prior to the first New York Times piece coming out, and at his request. In this email, Jill offered the truth based on what she remembers Rose telling her about the Sundance account. In the face of Rose's continued and embellished accusations last week, Harvey took it upon himself to release the email without her consent. 5 years ago, Jill suffered a manic episode. Anyone familiar with bipolar disorder knows that it is a cruel and vicious disease. With the help of doctors, her family, and friends, Jill rebounded. Jill had fought to put her life back together. After a long job search, she was in negotiations to run the production division for a new entertainment company. Seeing her name in headlines again and again as part of one person's attempt to gain more attention for her personal cause, along with Harvey's desperate attempt to vindicate himself, was devastating for her. It broke Jill, who was just starting to get her life back on track. What makes Rose's inaccurate accusations and insinuations against Jill ironic was that she was the first person who stood up on Rose's behalf and alerted her bosses to the horrific experience which Rose suffered. 20 years ago, as a very junior person in a management company hierarchy, Jill exhibited her integrity in doing the right thing. She raised the red flag with the heads of her firm in the face of inappropriate behavior. Jill handled the situation appropriately. Hers is one of the only stories that has stayed consistent over time as we watch other media reported tales morph to beget further attention. While journalists serve an important role in exposing predatory behavior, we are seeing irresponsible choices and an addiction to sensationalism, which leads to inconsistent storytelling. The media is a powerful tool not to be taken lightly. Most individuals would be horrified to have their names spotlighted in a major international news story, let alone their photograph. We cannot forget that the media is a fearsome tool which cannot be used indiscriminately or even inadvertently to create further victims. There is a responsibility when using a platform to accurately expose criminals, predators, mistruths, and misdeeds while protecting the actual truth of third parties. As we collectively seek to take action in an effort to right the wrong so brazenly and inhumanely repeated for a generation, we must not forget one simple truth: words have power. While we illuminate the dark corners for hidden truths, we must remember that what we say, particularly in the media, can have just as much impact, if not more, than our actions. We must ask more of ourselves and of each other. We must take a moment to consider the ramifications and consequences of what we say and what we do. Words matter. Someone's life may depend on it. Okay. Jill Messick's family is obviously not pleased with Rose McGowan or Harvey Weinstein. The family alleges that the word rape was never even used when Rose went to Jill with this story. Now we hear that McGowan got in a hot tub without her clothing on. I'm starting to wonder after reading this, were events sensationalized for a book, for book sales, or for something else? Was the story exaggerated? And it's awful funny how McGowan praised Jill and then kind of turned on her. And it seems like both of them continued to work with Weinstein after the alleged event. And I'm wondering, did this Jill Messick really kill herself because of bullying on social media? Is that really what happened? Did Bourdain really kill himself because he loved Argento so much? Because Bourdain's statements in public don't sound like he loved her that much. I've done the videos. What I'm trying to say is, people keep dying around these witches. And I don't know how Jill died. I haven't found that yet. The specific method. But after reading this stuff and thinking about it, it seems stories may have been exaggerated or embellished for a purpose. And it seems right before Bourdain died, there was some serious shit going on in that relationship with Argento. And I can't find a public statement again that Bourdain makes where it sounds like he's really in love with the woman. I've looked at the statement about falling in love with Asia is one thing. Falling in love in Asia is another thing. He talks about the city more than the girl. He says himself, I'm never going to marry her, but I wouldn't hate living with her. That doesn't sound like love to me. And again, these pictures that Asia allegedly fought to keep sealed of her with another guy, it wraps it all up in a nice little bow, doesn't it? But at the time, we didn't know about the fact that Bourdain paid off a kid that Asia had slept with underage. And now we have McGowan. It comes to light that she really put herself in a bad situation. If she didn't intend to sleep with the guy, why are you getting naked in a hot tub? And again, at one point, Jill was, this person that really helped her out. Then all of a sudden, later on, she lashes out at Jill. And the Rose Army goes after her publicly and harasses her. But I wonder, again, did this woman really kill herself because of, social media bullying and her name in headlines? When she committed no crime, did nothing wrong? And again, people seem to die around these witches. What's up with that? Peace be ever with thee.